Raise your vibration. You're vibrating at a low frequency. Match the vibration of what you want. High vibes only. If you've spent even 5 minutes in spiritual circles or scrolling through wellness content, you've heard this over and over and over. And maybe, like me, many years ago, you stood in front of a mirror after hearing this for the 100th time and thought, what the actual hell does that even mean? I'm not vibrating. I'm standing still. I don't feel like a tuning fork. I don't emit a frequency I can measure on my phone. So what are these people talking about? Is this just spiritual jargon? Pseudoscience dressed up in mystical language? Or is there something real underneath all the Instagram quotes? Raise your vibration. What the hell does that even mean? Today, we're going to decode this. We're going to separate the science from the nonsense, the genuine wisdom from the spiritual traditions, and figure out what vibration actually refers to, and whether you should care. Spoiler: the answer might surprise you. Let me take you back to when I first encountered this concept. I was at a spiritual workshop, online one. The teacher, a woman with perfect posture and the kind of calm that makes you feel anxious, said something like, "The reason you're not manifesting what you want is because you're vibrating at the frequency of lack, not abundance. You need to raise your vibration to match what you desire." And everyone agreed. Like, this made perfect sense. Meanwhile, I'm sitting there thinking, vibration? I'm a human being, not a guitar string. What are we talking about? So I did what any confused person does. I Googled it. And you know what I found? A million different explanations, most of them either. A. Extremely vague. Your vibration is your energy signature, your aura, the frequency you emit into the universe. Cool. Still don't know what that means. B. Pseudoscientific. Everything vibrates at 432 Hz, or 528 Hz, and you need to align with the divine frequency. Now we're just throwing numbers around. C. Toxically positive. Just think happy thoughts and you'll vibrate higher and attract everything you want. So, manifestation with extra steps? None of this helped. Because here's the thing. When someone tells you to raise your vibration, they're using a metaphor. But they're not explaining what the metaphor is pointing to. It's like telling someone to find their flow without explaining what flow is. It sounds nice, it feels important, but what does it actually mean? So I did what I always do when I'm confused about something spiritual. I looked for the science underneath the poetry. And what I found was actually fascinating. Let's start with a fact that sounds mystical but is actually just physics. Everything vibrates. Not metaphorically, literally. At the quantum level, atoms are in constant motion. Electrons orbit nuclei. Molecules vibrate. Even in solid objects, this table, this chair, your body, particles are dancing, oscillating, moving at speeds we can't perceive. So in the most literal sense, yes, you are vibrating. Right now. Because you're made of matter, and matter is energy in motion. But here's the thing. That's not what spiritual teachers mean when they say, raise your vibration. What they're actually pointing to is this. Your brain produces measurable electromagnetic frequencies. We call them brain waves. Beta waves, 13 to 30 Hz. Alert, focused, sometimes anxious. Alpha waves, 8 to 12 Hz. Relaxed, calm, creative. Theta waves, 4 to 7 Hz. Meditative, deeply relaxed, dreaming. Delta waves, 0.5 to 3 Hz. Deep sleep, unconscious. When you meditate, your brain literally shifts frequency from beta to alpha to theta. This is measurable with an EEG. It's not mystical, it's neuroscience. And then there's your heart. The Heart Math Institute has done extensive research showing that your heart generates an electromagnetic field that extends several feet beyond your body. And this field changes based on your emotional state. When you're stressed, anxious, or angry, your heart rhythm becomes chaotic, erratic, jagged. When you're calm, grateful, or loving, your heart rhythm becomes coherent, smooth, ordered, like a sine wave. This is called heart coherence. And yes, it's a measurable frequency shift. So when someone says raise your vibration, part of what they're pointing to, whether they know it or not, is this. Shift your nervous system state. Move from chaos to coherence. Change the electromagnetic patterns your brain and heart are generating. That's real. That's happening. That's not pseudoscience. But there's more. Different emotional states trigger different neurochemical cascades. Fear dumps cortisol and adrenaline into your system. Joy releases dopamine and serotonin. Gratitude activates oxytocin and endorphins. These aren't just vibes. They're biological states with measurable signatures. When you're anxious, your body is literally in a different state than when you're peaceful. Different hormones, different nervous system activation, different brainwave patterns, different heart rhythms. That's the vibration. So science gives us the mechanism. But spiritual traditions have been talking about this for thousands of years, long before we had EEGs and heart rate monitors. They just used different language. In Hindu and yogic traditions, they talk about prana, life force energy that flows through channels called nadis and collects in centers called chakras. When your energy is blocked, stagnant, or chaotic, when your vibration is low, you feel heavy, stuck, depressed, anxious. When your energy is flowing, clear, and balanced, when your vibration is high, you feel light, expansive, joyful, connected. Buddhism describes different states of consciousness, from the dense, reactive states dominated by craving and aversion, to the refined, peaceful states of equanimity and compassion. Same idea, different words. Raising your vibration is moving from dense, reactive states to refined, aware states. Kabbalah talks about ascending the tree of life, moving from the lower material levels, Malkuth, to the higher spiritual levels, Kether. Again, shifting from dense to refined, from low to high, from chaos to coherence. Sufis speak of refining the nafs, the ego self, through remembrance, devotion, and surrender, until the soul vibrates in harmony with the divine. Notice the pattern? Every tradition is describing a shift in state, a shift in the quality of consciousness, a shift from being identified with heavy, contracted, fear-based patterns to resting in lighter, more expansive, love-based awareness. And here's what's beautiful. Modern neuroscience validates what mystics have been saying for millennia. When people meditate regularly, brain scans show thickening in areas associated with awareness and compassion, thinning in areas associated with fear and self-referential anxiety, increased gamma wave activity associated with insight and peak states, improved heart rate variability. You're not just thinking positive thoughts. You're literally rewiring your nervous system, changing your brain structure, shifting the electromagnetic patterns your body generates. That's raising your vibration. Now here's where this whole thing gets messy. Here's where the legitimate science and ancient wisdom get hijacked by, let's call it spiritual capitalism. You've probably seen this. Meditate at 528 Hz to repair your DNA. This crystal vibrates at the frequency of abundance. Listen to 432 Hz music to align with the universe. Let's be very clear. This is mostly nonsense. There's no scientific evidence that exposing yourself to a specific audio frequency repairs your DNA. DNA operates at molecular and chemical levels. It doesn't respond to sound waves in any mystical way. Crystals don't vibrate at the frequency of abundance. Abundance isn't a frequency. It's a concept. And while 432 Hz versus 440 Hz tuning might sound slightly different to your ears, there's no evidence it's more aligned with the universe. That's just marketing. And then there's the toxic positivity problem. When raise your vibration becomes code for never feel negative emotions, or just think happy thoughts and everything will be fine, we've left reality entirely. You can't positivity your way out of systemic oppression. You can't high vibe yourself out of grief. You can't manifest away trauma by matching the frequency of healing. Emotions aren't good or bad. Anger isn't a low vibration to eliminate. Sometimes anger is the appropriate response to injustice. Sadness isn't something to bypass. It's part of being human. The goal isn't to only feel high vibe emotions. The goal is to not be controlled by any emotion, to be aware of what's arising without being consumed by it. That's the difference between spiritual bypassing and genuine transformation. Bypassing says, I'm only going to feel good feelings and pretend the rest don't exist. Transformation says, I'm going to feel everything fully, process it consciously, and not let it dictate my state of being. So if raise your vibration isn't about crystals and 528 Hz music and toxic positivity, what is it actually about? Here's what I've learned through years of practice. Practice 1. Nervous system regulation. When you're in fight or flight, stressed, anxious, reactive, your body is in a state of chaos. Heart rhythm is erratic. Brain waves are fast and jagged. Cortisol is flooding your system. Lowering your vibration to match this chaos would mean staying stuck there. Raising your vibration means consciously shifting to a state of coherence. Deep breathing activates parasympathetic nervous system. Meditation shifts brain waves from beta to alpha/theta. Heart-focused gratitude creates heart coherence. Movement processes stress hormones, releases endorphins. This isn't woo-woo. This is biology. Practice 2. Emotional alchemy. You don't bypass negative emotions. You metabolize them. When resentment arises, you feel it fully. Then you practice forgiveness, not because the other person deserves it, but because holding on to resentment keeps you vibrating at the frequency of resentment. When fear arises, you acknowledge it. Then you choose courage. Not by denying the fear, but by acting despite it. You're not suppressing, you're transforming, taking the energy of the emotion and channeling it differently. Practice 3. Alignment. Raising your vibration also means getting honest about what genuinely serves you. Toxic relationships lower your vibration, not in some mystical sense, but literally. Being around people who drain you activates stress responses, floods you with cortisol, keeps you in survival mode. Setting boundaries, saying no, removing yourself from harmful environments. This isn't selfish. This is self-preservation. This is maintaining coherence. Practice 4. Purpose and contribution. When you're doing work that matters to you, when you're contributing to something beyond yourself, when you're in flow, your brain enters gamma wave states. Your heart coherence increases. You feel expanded. This is high vibration. Not because you're special or enlightened, but because you're aligned. You're expressing rather than repressing. You're contributing rather than consuming. So when someone says, raise your vibration, here's the translation. Shift from chaos to coherence, from reactivity to awareness, from contraction to expansion, from fear-based patterns to love-based presence. And yeah, that matters, because the state you're in affects everything: your health, your relationships, your decisions, your perception of reality itself. Here's what I wish someone had told me when I first heard raise your vibration and thought it was nonsense. It's not about being happy all the time. It's not about never feeling fear or anger or sadness. It's about who's in charge. When you're unconscious, when you're identified with every thought and emotion that arises, you're at the mercy of your nervous system's reactivity. A rude email spikes your cortisol. Traffic makes you rage. Someone's success makes you feel inadequate. You're vibrating at the frequency of reactivity. But when you have even a little bit of awareness, when you can notice the thought, feel the emotion, and not be completely consumed by it, you have choice. You can feel angry and choose not to lash out. You can feel anxious and choose to breathe. You can feel grief and still show up for your life. You're vibrating at the frequency of awareness. That's the difference. And both science and spirituality agree on this. Your state matters. The quality of your consciousness, the coherence of your nervous system, the patterns your brain and heart generate, they don't just affect how you feel. They affect how you perceive, how you decide, how you relate, how you show up. They might even affect the people around you. Mirror neurons, electromagnetic fields, subtle cues. We pick up on each other's states more than we realize. So no, you're not literally vibrating at 432 Hz when you meditate. Your aura doesn't have a measurable frequency you can tune like a radio. But yes, you are shifting states. You are changing the electromagnetic patterns your body generates. You are rewiring your brain. You are moving from chaos to coherence. And that matters more than any mystical frequency ever could. 10 years ago, if someone told me to raise my vibration, I would have rolled my eyes so hard I'd have seen my own brain. Now, I get it. Not because I bought into pseudoscience or started believing in magic frequencies, but because I understand what the metaphor is pointing to. When I meditate, I'm not raising my vibration. I'm shifting my brain waves from beta to alpha. I'm creating heart coherence. I'm regulating my nervous system. When I practice gratitude, I'm not emitting abundance frequency. I'm activating neural pathways associated with well-being. I'm triggering oxytocin. I'm training my attention. When I set boundaries and remove myself from toxic situations, I'm not protecting my aura. I'm protecting my nervous system from chronic stress activation. Same practices, different language. One is mystical, one is scientific. Both are true. So the next time someone tells you to raise your vibration, you'll know what they actually mean. Get out of survival mode. Come into presence. Shift from reactivity to awareness. From chaos to coherence. From being controlled by your state to having some say in it. And yeah, that's worth doing. Not because it'll make you manifest a Ferrari. Not because it'll make you enlightened. But because living in coherence feels better than living in chaos. Because awareness is more free than reactivity. Because you're going to spend your whole life in this nervous system. You might as well learn how to work with it instead of against it. So, what the hell does raise your vibration mean? It means be more conscious, be more present, be less at the mercy of every thought and emotion that arises. That's it. That's the whole thing. And if that sounds less mystical and more practical than you expected, good. The truth usually is, if this clicked something into place for you, drop a comment. And if you want more videos that translate spiritual jargon into actual understanding, consider subscribing, because we're just getting started unpacking this stuff. Oh, and one last thing. Your ego just thought, okay, but am I vibrating high enough? How do I know if I'm doing this right? There it is. That's low vibration. Not because the question is bad, but because the anxious grasping for certainty, that's the opposite of coherence. Notice it. Breathe. Let it go. That's the practice.